Class is in session. All right, everybody, welcome to Unlearn 16. Class is in session, guys.
Ding, ding.
Ding, ding. Today, I have a pretty incredible guest. All right? I have a Liberal cabinet minister, and I'm going to try to get this right. And I practiced like 7 times. So when I don't get this right,
I'll correct you.
Okay. Yeah. Minister of Children, Family, Social Development,
Check.
Jenna Sudds.
Brilliant.
Can you
Thank
explain that? That's a long title.
It is a long title. Really, my name's Jenna. Please
Not
call me
Jenna
Jenna.
Sudds?
Or Jenna Sudds, sure, either or. The title, I mean, really, it's just about an amazing opportunity that I have to serve our country and to ensure that the best interests of families and children are at the forefront in all the decisions we make as a government.
Did they write that in the handbook?
No, I just made that up.
Throw it all away. What does it mean? Give me one thing.
Okay.
One thing that you have done or that you have been a part of, not the thing we're going to talk about because I'm cheating.
Sure.
One thing that you have done and you've been a part of where you've said, that's made Canada better.
Absolutely.
That's made this province, this whatever.
Yeah.
Give me one thing.
I love that question.
Give me.
And I won't talk about the thing we're about to talk about. The other one thing that I'm incredibly proud of,
Yes,
that's still underway, to be fair, is rolling out our national early learning and childcare system. So $10 a day daycare.
Okay, well,
across this country.
Okay, that's kind of rolled out already, is it not?
No, work in progress.
Okay, so it's not. It's not full-fledged in Ontario, or it's in different spots in different provinces?
It's in different spots in different provinces. Okay. So in Ontario, we have an agreement with the province. They're going to create 86,000 new childcare spots over 5 years. Mm-hmm. So far, they're at about maybe 25,000
in Ontario.
In Ontario, and they need to get to $10 a day by March 2026. As of June. Oh my gosh. January 1st, they'll be at $22 a day.
And I think the average person sitting at home going, okay, how do you get something to $10 a day when we need to pay childcare workers, we need to pay for the facilities, their food, whatever else goes on, all of the runny noses, I don't know, diapers. Yeah. How does that happen?
Sure.
So it's just through subsidization?
So federal government transfers money to each and every province and territory under certain terms and conditions. And then the provinces then administer it. So the funding goes from from the taxpayers, let's be honest.
Thank you for
acknowledging that. So from the tax base, from the federal government, then to the provincial government. And then the provincial government will then send it on to childcare operators across the country, excluding Ontario, because Ontario is always special. And Ontario sends it to...
Don't be jealous, Alberta. Dial it down.
Ontario sends it to the municipalities. Okay. The municipalities send it to the childcare operators.
That's interesting.
Yeah. There's an extra layer there.
I think Ford's just trying to pass the buck. But anyways, so that's the way it works. And just to give a tiny little civics lesson, because I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
A lot of people at home don't get what a subsidy is, don't get what a transfer payment is, and then we can roll into what you're doing now, because a transfer of payment would look like you have a tax base coming from each province, so everybody pays income tax. It all goes to the federal government. The federal government then takes a large body of that money and tries to equalize it or equitably distribute it amongst the country, because certain provinces do better than others to make sure that everybody's basic needs at the very least are being met.
Absolutely.
Did I do a good job?
You get an A.
Fantastic. I do like a strong atta girl. Okay, so taking that in mind, how much, and then we're going to roll into what we want to talk about today, but how much pushback do you get when you say, we're doing $10 a day daycare, it's coming out of tax dollars, we're going to make sure everybody has access to it, and the taxpayer puts up their hand and says, I am tired of paying high income tax?
Sure. It happens, absolutely.
I feel like that's all anyone's saying right now.
Yeah, it's fair, but at the same time, and I mean, I'm kind of in a fortunate position because I get to speak to a lot of the parents who are using the childcare system and who are benefiting from these reduced fees.
Right.
And I have to tell you, like, even here in Ontario, we're only at a 50% reduction in fees. It's like transformational for parents. Like, it's about $8,000, almost $9,000 a year per child that they're saving.
Right.
So
you're not
pretty
paying
instrumental.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting number. So let's say now I'm going to put the people who don't have kids over here for a second. They're going to complain separately. But for families though, because we see a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you back a tax benefit. I'm going to give you $100, $200 a month," right? Some just give the $200 check and hope you elect them. I'm not going to talk about that on this.
Not
podcast.
Not us.
But because of that, right? So they're giving you these tiny little subsidies, but really, when you look at $8,000, it's significant, and what it allows, for the most part, people to stay in the workforce.
Yes, predominantly
people to
women.
build a career, predominantly women. People to stay in their careers, build their careers, so they don't have to take a huge chunk of time off. Then try to reinsert themselves into an economy that, let's be honest, is ridiculous because they don't want them. Mothers, I would hire a multitasking mother to do anything at any time, any day of the week, twice on Sundays. But that's very much the case, right?
Sure.
Now there are some stay-at-home moms that stay at home and do an amazing job, or stay-at-home dad, amazing. But this is that.
This is an enabler.
Absolutely.
It gives parents more choice. They can choose to stay home. They can choose to go back to work. Not everyone had that choice before affordable childcare was a thing.
Listen, my mom got 6 weeks with me. That's it. Back to work. But what it also does, and I think it's not pushed for, and we don't talk about very often, is it helps create a stable economy that isn't having that push and pull, that can grow at a consistent rate.
Absolutely.
Rather than being, thrown into turmoil.
Yeah, you're very right on that.
Again, another strong atta girl. I appreciate that.
Atta girl.
My eye is twitching. Why is that? You guys see that on camera?
No.
Listen, running a school is a lot. Jenna.
I believe it.
You think running a country's hard?
I'm not dealing with a few hundred
You just have to talk to
teenagers.
Pierre every 5 seconds. He eats an apple and annoys everybody. Have you ever tried to control a 15-year-old? Okay, so now there's this amazing program, which is why we're having this conversation today, that I think is quite incredible, because I've been working in education long enough to see it come and go. Now, most kids, and the system itself has been gutted in a lot of ways, the education system in this province. And I have seen a slow erosion since Mike Harris, probably. So when I graduated high school, 1994, it was, you saw it happened then. That big teacher strike happened then.
Yes, yeah.
But you started to see things that were being taken away from the system, and then I went off. And over the years, and through, sorry to bear the brunt of this, conservative and liberal governments alike, you saw this system being hollowed out, right? You had a huge strike under Kathleen Wynne, and they're forced back to work, and then the Constitution was brought into it.
Challenging.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. I'll give you that. Absolutely.
What is your program, and how does it tie to education?
Sure. So the amazing work that I'm getting to do right now is to roll out a school food program across the country.
Right.
So we, as your liberal federal government, made the decision that we were going to prioritize children, and we've made a $1 billion commitment to ensure that kids at school have food. Now, that sounds lovely, and I think most people can get behind that concept. I will tell you, Pierre Poilievre has labeled it more bureaucracy. However...
I'm sure he'd say it was communist. That sounds communist. How dare you feed children?
It's unbelievable, to be honest with you. But
in all fairness, have you ever watched Princess Bride?
Of course.
He keeps on using that word. I do not think it means what he thinks it means.
Yeah.
It's just like constantly coming out. Okay, so it's a national program, $1 billion to feed kids across the board in every province.
Correct. So here's the tricky part.
Oh, I think there's a few.
There's a few tricky parts, absolutely. So we announced this in our budget back in the spring. So since that time, I have been working across the country with all provinces and territories to negotiate funding agreements with each province and
I
territory.
can already tell the tricky part, Jenna.
It is tricky, yes. We've got a framework. Obviously, we have a policy with kind of our key principles, ensuring it's universally accessible, it's sustainable, it adheres to nutrition guides, it looks to local food sources. All of these really great
Sounds fantastic.
guiding
Yes.
principles. But having said that, we need each province and territory to not only agree to those principles, but to share their plan.
Right.
Right? So tell me how over this school year, this first year of funding, how you are going to best use these dollars
Right.
to ensure kids have access to food. So far we've announced Newfoundland Labrador, first day of school in
Solid.
September.
They do have a puffin, so
Amazing.
I get it. They're nice people.
They are nice people. So that was a great start to the
Right.
school year. Last month we were able to announce Manitoba has moved
Fantastic.
forward, and Manitoba has had a version, like has made some investments on their own over the
Yeah.
last few years, and so this is enabling them to do
course,
even
yeah.
more. And now we are announcing Ontario, which is remarkable.
Nobody can be surprised about that as much as I am right now. But
Well-
I know. Look, I can see. Yeah, it is remarkable. I'll let
It
you
is, yeah.
go ahead. Say
No,
remarkable
no,
for a
I-
second.
Remarkable.
He can have it for a minute.
Sure.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
My question is, who said a? Are you allowed to say who said a strong no? Get out of my
I
kitchen.
don't have any no's yet.
I have some ideas.
I don't have any no's.
I can't. Can you give me one legitimate reason without obviously naming names? I'll
Sure.
name them later in my own podcast, who I think is being problematic and why. But who would say, or why would they say no? What could be? Okay, forget the illegitimate reasons because
Sure.
they don't want the Liberal government to look good. To hell with
Sure.
that. And elections coming up, I want to make sure that my party looks better, which could be a play. Is there a legitimate reason that a province would be hesitant to want to implement a program like this? The way that you guys have structured it. Can you think of any legitimate
No.
reason? No, not at all.
No.
No.
We're talking about food for kids, right? Now, to be fair, obviously, Ontario is a big step. I feel confident we'll have another province soon. We have had, I guess,
BC.
4 provinces that have been in election mode too,
Right,
right?
BC.
Including BC.
Yeah, what a mess.
So now, obviously, they're
They'll be in.
transitioning.
Yeah, they'll be good.
So, it had, while they were in election mode, obviously we're not negotiating a funding agreement.
Right. Yeah.
But all that to say, that's starting to clear up. Only Nova Scotia is currently in election mode.
Right.
So we will begin to be able to engage further with those provinces as well.
I have a question. So if you, which is great because it's my podcast. If you're going to try, let's just take school A, okay? And let's assume there's a lot of kids from different socioeconomic backgrounds within that public school.
Yes.
You are going to provide food at that school. I'm assuming you aren't going to differentiate from the kid who desperately needs it, the
Correct.
kid that kind of needs it, and the kid that doesn't need it at all.
No. There's universal access is one of our key principles.
Absolutely.
It needs to be in that obviously there can be no stigma towards going to the breakfast room or going to wherever lunch is served or the snack. There can be no stigma attached to that. Food should be offered on a level playing field, and all children should be able to enjoy it together, learn together, and benefit from the program. It's going to take time to get there, to be completely fair. It's
Yeah.
going to take time as this is being rolled out. There's obviously hurdles with respect to schools' capacity, having the equipment, having the staff. All of those things are going to take a bit of time. However,
So would it be like you'd have to make the food in your own cafeteria?
not necessarily. So those it'll look different, frankly, everywhere across the country,
okay.
right?
Right.
Because there's unique circumstances. Here in Ontario, so Ontario already has a student nutrition program. That nutrition program is run by 13 different community organizations.
Okay.
Nutrition program organizations. Here,
So it's kind of already set up to facilitate this. This
exactly.
funding is just gonna.
It's like a booster.
Right,
Just
right.
boost it all up, right?
Now, again, just a little bit of a civics lesson, just so everybody understands. Education is a provincial jurisdiction.
Yes.
So constitutionally, it is their job to handle education, fund education.
Yes.
And create curriculum and all of those things. And we can talk about my desire to nationalize education later. I think we should change our constitution. But how does this butt up against that? Does it?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And that is exactly why we've approached it as we have, and that we set forward kind of this overarching policy. These are the principles we need to see. Mm-hmm. We will fund the provinces that signed on, ensuring that they adhere to that policy, but undoubtedly it will look different in different parts of the country. And that is, as you've rightly said, education is provincial jurisdiction. Yeah. And so who are we to dictate what that looks like? So it will look different. All that to say, again, I would like to think that feeding kids at school is not political. It is not something that we should be opposing or arguing about. And frankly, I would say, although it's taking a bit of time to get everyone signed on, we are having productive discussions.
I think also, though, I mean, it's happening within schools, but to me, this could be more of a human basic rights and basic needs being met. So if people are going to speak about on a constitutional term, let's say, we're not really talking about influencing and controlling education per se. We're not talking about facilities. We're not talking about curriculum. Although we should. Not this podcast. We're not talking about that. We're talking, it's just the location at which your government is trying to ensure that kids, especially kids below the poverty line or at the poverty line who are struggling to actually eat, can have basic needs met. Right?
Absolutely, you're very right.
So I don't think it necessarily falls, I mean, it does because it's in schools, but it doesn't necessarily fall in that.
Yep, you're right.
So when you're going to have people arguing against it, I mean, I think there are some provinces that really sort of try to puff up their chests and be a little bit more of a, I don't want to say separatist. Did I say that word? I didn't mean that word.
No.
Independent thinkers. But they don't like a sort of a heavy-hand federalist kind of leaning. But I really can't see their argument around this when in actuality, the only rules you've made, it needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
Who's arguing against that?
Yeah.
I mean, I do like a Twinkie, so I don't, maybe every once in a while.
Some
and everybody who's
cookies.
Listening to me is like, Joanna would just go to McDonald's all the time. So that it has to be healthy.
Sure.
I love the idea that it needs to be locally sourced.
Yes.
Does it make it more expensive? How
Good
much more
question.
expensive?
It will vary, right? Like that's a variable that I think everywhere you are will vary. But also, I mean, when it's local, there's less transportation costs.
True.
We know that nutrients are lost through transportation, so you get something fresh.
And it will change.
And it supports that local economy, right?
Right. Now, how many kids are we talking about? There are.
Sure.
I just did a TikTok about this. Not to bring up that, but 900 schools, public schools, in Ontario. That was my number. I hope that's like 940 maybe.
I want to say 450.
No, all public, like elementary and high school.
Oh, interesting. I don't know that number off.
So is
the
this
top of
just
my
an
head.
elementary school?
It depends on the province. So the province will set those parameters, and it will be through the current partnerships through those 13 school food partners. Right. So currently, those partners have a number of programs across the province. Right. I should look to find out the breakdown of where those are as far as elementary versus secondary. Right. I don't know that off the top of my head. But having said that, our investment that we're making, that we've just announced with Ontario, we'll see an additional 160,000 children.
Okay.
And just over, I think it's 9.6 million meals this school year.
Okay.
So substantial.
So how many? So you're doing black breakfast and lunch.
Whatever is the choice. Yes, we're not dictating that.
Decides.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that's a lot of space, giving the province a lot? I'm just wondering if Doug Ford just serves those egg sandwiches every day from Tim Hortons. Like, I'm just, and I'm obviously joking, but like, that would be too expensive. My question is, like, if there's not as much control over that,
Sure.
are you worried about the money not going where the money's supposed to go?
I'm not, and I'll tell you why I'm not. Those 13 Ontario school food organizations or partners have been doing incredible work for a long time.
In Ontario.
In
You're just
Ontario.
talking about Ontario.
I'm talking about Ontario here.
Oh, so
And those, like, they do this work out of a labor of love.
Right.
They really do. And so I feel confident that this investment we've just announced here in Ontario will enable them to just do more. And that's what they really want.
Right.
And I will say as well, our investment here in Ontario, so the first year is $18.5 million this school year. And that 80% of that needs to be strictly food.
Okay.
So there are some rules around how this money is spent.
What's the 20%? Like transportation?
The other, it can be transportation, it could be staffing,
Right.
it could be, accommodations that need to be made, it could be fridges, right? Whatever that looks like, because some schools obviously
don't have the facilities.
Exactly.
Sure.
So, there's a strong mandate in there to ensure. The other piece as well, which we haven't touched on, is there is, as part of, in Ontario, our funding, a commitment to ensure that the Indigenous or First Nations.
I was going to get there.
Okay, our First Nations.
It's a second half of the
food
policy,
partners.
though, right?
No, it's part of it.
Well, it's like
part of this agreement with
Ontario. Okay, yes.
Yeah. To ensure, through this agreement, we will see about 130,000 additional meals served through the First Nations and other partnerships for Indigenous children.
And so you will partner again with that community.
Correct. With that organization, right? So again, it's a school food organization, specifically serving Indigenous
within that community itself. So these organizations, they're all privately run? Are they nonprofit? What are they? So they're all nonprofit. So you're telling me that you're going to give the money to an Ontario and Doug Ford's just going to hand it over in its entirety?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here I'm trying to think in Scarborough.
I mean, I like the way that sounds.
Yeah. And here, so it's the Toronto Student Success Foundation.
That's the ministry. You're talking
TSF?
about
No, the organization, the school food partner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. TSSF.
And they have different groups underneath them.
Exactly.
That go out and
that actually do the work. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can't see any downside. The only thing I guess I'm going to ask.
Sure.
Because all of the numbers seem ridiculous. You ever listen to anybody talk about, I'm giving $8 billion to the... And the money doesn't mean anything.
Agreed. Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything, and it seems as though, the federal government's dealing in billions of dollars all over the place, and for the average person, it's like every time we turn around, we listen to lots of different levels of government say we're going to spend $100 million here, $32 million here. Is there a way? And I'm really putting you on the spot.
That's
right now.
okay.
Is there a way to boil it down so it makes a little bit more logistical sense to say your X amount of kids are going to have this kind of food, and I know different provinces, different whatever, but this is what it tangibly means per kid in the school where they need access.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Let's hear
Give it. For the whole country or for
I'll
Ontario?
get your calculator. Hold on. No, just stay in Ontario.
Stay in Ontario? Okay.
Again, we talk about the whole country,
I know,
and I think people get overwhelmed. And I think
a lot.
There's all these incredible ideas, and they're shot at you, and I think people kind of just turn them off.
Yeah.
It's just like, sure they are. They are. But this is incredibly important, and to understand it, and then to actually see the rollout, I think matters. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so Ontario.
Okay.
Year one,
Yes.
we are sending them $18.5 million.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
That means 160,000 more children will have access, will receive food at school.
Okay.
That brings overall the total number of children who have access to food at school this year will be 1 million. 1 million children in Ontario.
Wow.
Okay? Meals is, with this additional investment this school year, 9.7 more meals served at school this school year.
How many?
That's tangible.
That's tangible.
It's
How many
tangible.
kids right now in Ontario would you say? And I know I'm asking you a lot of numbers here, but you
I
take
love
a guess.
numbers.
How many kids? I'm a big. I should have brought a whiteboard or a chalk. How many kids do you think are living sort of at the poverty line or below at this very moment in Ontario?
Oof.
Like, I've heard stats
Yeah.
over in Canada where, we're over a million children living below the poverty line
Yeah.
and
And-
not having basic. And so when I say the poverty
Yeah.
line, I mean, who's not having basic needs met?
Sure.
Food, clothing, shelter, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. That's a tough number
Yeah.
to pin down, to be fair. And I would suggest, like, one kid is one too many, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
No,
let's
I get
be
that.
honest. We've, you asked me earlier on about something I'm really proud about. Well, let me give you one more thing because it relates to this conversation. And that's the Canada Child Benefit.
Right.
So anyone who has kids under 18 in this country, if you talk to them, most of them will be receiving or had received the Canada Child Benefit. It's a sliding scale, but it goes up to about $7,600 every year per child. It arrives every month in
Yes.
people's bank accounts.
This is like what the baby bonus used to be.
Used to be, yes.
I got $36
but on
when I was a
steroids.
kid.
Yes, yeah, I remember it too. It was
$36.
so exciting when our mums opened that check and
$36.
took it to the bank. I remember that. Okay, well, it's not $36 anymore,
Right.
and
What
it's
is
a
really?
completely rethought process to ensure. And so this is where I'm going back to your original point. It has helped us lift hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty since we introduced this version, this Canada Child Benefit in 2016. And so that's going back to the, one kid is too many. When I look at the work that we've done since our government came into power in 2015, whether it's the Canada Child Benefit, whether it's affordable childcare, whether it's now moving forward with this National School Food Program, whether it's our new dental benefit, moving forward with pharmacare. Like, when you stack these programs on top of each other, it is really, really impactful, especially for those who are struggling. I have the benefit of getting to talk to mums and dads and kids everywhere in this country, and I'll tell you, the stories are heartwarming. Like, this is impactful work. And, are we done? No, there's still more we need to do. There's still a lot of work to be done. But brick by brick, I think we're making a difference.
What do you say to the people that say...
That smirk,
No, to the people that say... I know what I would say.
Yeah.
And I would say it probably sarcastically. But what would you say to individuals who are constantly just talking about the reduction of income tax, the reduction of taxes in general, so that $7,600, why did we take it from them in the first place? Why not just leave it in their pockets? Why not, I'm going to sound like a parrot in a second, why not let Canadians decide how to use their, why not that? I mean, I have a good reason, but I'd like to hear yours.
Well, frankly, first of all, I'm a mom as well outside of this, right? And I think being a mom, raising 3 kids over the last 18 years, gives you perspective. And, this is Canada.
Did I possibly mess up the filming of this? Listen, I've told you about my eye twitch. I pressed a button on something, things stopped recording. You were right about to talk about Canada, and I Pierre Poilievre.
The nerve of you.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to put this down, and you're going to tell me
Focus.
I am trying. It is a Wednesday? Is it Wednesday?
I don't
What
know.
day is it? The kind of country you want to live in is premised on what? Because this is important.
Yeah,
A lot of my kids will talk to me about, like, I'm not a big flag person. I'm not even.
I used to like
I'm
you.
going to say something offensive, or you're going to
no.
hate me even more right now. I'm not even a big national anthem person. Wait. What I am is I'm a big idea person, and I am a community person.
Yeah.
So when people say, Joanna, do you love your country? I say, I love the people that I'm surrounded by. Land doesn't have meaning to me. People do.
Yeah.
And the more we push off symbolism to land and to flags and to symbols, I think that kind of patriotism falls very shallow and doesn't have a lot of depth. You know, governments change. It's not to the government.
Sure.
It's to an idea.
Yeah.
And so if I'm to ask you, what's your idea of Canada that you hold closely, all of the things that we've talked about,
Yeah.
what does that look like to you?
Yeah. Well, I kind of love what you just said. Because
you don't like
to
flags
me,
anymore, do
no,
you?
I love the flag and I love Oh Canada. But I also love the people that make Canada, right? Like that's what it's all about. It's about the people, the Canadians across this country who make it what it is, right? And you know, back to our earlier conversation, you know, I'm incredibly proud as a Canadian that we are a country that helps lift others up, right? That we have strong social programs to ensure that people don't get left behind, that those that are struggling have access to programs that help to support them. Like as a mom, I've got 3 teenagers, and yeah, mind blown, I know, teenagers.
I think my eye's twitching for you.
Thank you, I need that.
It's just
switch.
proximity.
3 teenage girls. Anyways, all that to say, like the country that I want to be raising them, that I have raised them in, is a country of compassion, a country of people that care about their neighbors and are there for them.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll be able to roll right back into the other mistake that I made.
Let's do that.
And I'll pick up what I said right now.
You can't cut taxes and not cut spending.
Right.
They have to go in hand. So, you know, we have Pierre Poilievre. I get to listen to him all the time in the House of Commons.
Should I get you an apple?
I need an apple. You're right. Where's the apple?
Can't talk without an apple. Somebody.
You know, all he talks about is cuts. There's an apple.
Go ahead.
And you can't, you know, maintain what we have as a country or accelerate, frankly, some of the supports that are really necessary and things like a national school food program without corresponding taxes that support these programs.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
My eye's still twitching.
Oh boy.
What is wrong with me? Water. I like to frame it this way because I know a lot of people talk about taxes. We have whatever's going on south of the border right now. Everybody's being run by a very strong fear of their economic safety and security.
Yeah.
And it's real. There's no and it always is real. And I think in times of that economic insecurity, it's very sort of, you know, Thomas Hobbes, where people are willing to give up a hell of a lot of freedom and a lot of their own sort of personal, you know, civil rights in order to be ensured that everything is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
First of all, nothing's ever going to be perfect. That's ridiculous. And if somebody's trying to sell you a simplistic answer to a complex solution, understand they're lying. But I also think this. I think by my neighbor, using your, you know, your comparison, my neighbor having a sense of stability in their lives, even if they're working, let's say, a minimum wage job, and they're holding on very, very tightly, and they're making it work, but it's kind of at the bare minimum. Ensuring those people don't fall.
Yes,
if I'm just, even if I'm, let's say I'm a horrible person. Let's say, even if I don't care about other people. Let's say I just care about me and what I'm going to achieve. if my neighbor falls,
Right.
I will have to pay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My healthcare costs will go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crime will go up.
Sure.
Security issues will go up.
Yeah.
When my neighbor falls, there goes my business. Nobody's buying from my store anymore. If we don't have a consistent middle class lifting up people that are at that breaking point, because if we can do that, that stability helps everybody.
Absolutely.
And I'm so exhausted hearing people say, put your own bootstraps kind of people, trickle down economics. I mean, Reagan's been gone a long time. It's all been disproven.
Yeah.
And again, when they talk to me and they'll say, "Oh, Joanna, but you're so utopian and it's all like holding hands and singing kumbaya." No, be selfish.
Yeah.
Be selfish. You own a business, be selfish. Understand, if your neighbor can't buy your product, you go out of business.
Yeah.
You
Fair.
all fall.
Yeah.
Right? And I think kids being able to eat, and as a teacher, funnily enough, I'm eating an apple. I brought in a bag of apples the other day, and I took a bite, and because students are heathens, I had a student say, "Can I have that?" I said, "You want the apple I've just bit?" Well, I haven't, it's like, kids are like starved. And these are kids, I work at a private school, my kids are, but the problem is, we've shifted to a society where it's like very easily accessible food. It's a lot of bad food. Again, I'm going through all the drive-throughs, and I bring in some apples.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, kids are like, "Oh my God, I feel so much better when I eat that."
It's so true.
I work
Nothing better than an apple.
I work better when I have food in my stomach. I have kids that are rolling into class that haven't eaten because they just don't have time for it. But the way that it changes education, people still, we haven't even got to this, and I know we've been talking a long time, so I'm not going to keep you here all night. But when kids have something in their stomachs, and it means their brains can work.
Absolutely.
If they don't, again, and this
They
is
can focus.
a societal issue.
Yes.
If they can focus and they can get their work done and they can understand it and they can become more aware and more empowered and they move on to do, guess what we've just created? That exact story that I've just talked about.
Yeah.
So by giving kids the food that they need, by ensuring that both kids that desperately need it economically, socially, culturally, that is all incredibly important, but it will lead to better education, better classroom results, better test scores, better all of those things.
My job here is done.
Dismissed.